You think about a 17-year-old black boy, right? He gets caught with a small amount of weed, and instead of, having the conversation with him and giving him a slap on the wrist and sending him on about his way, you locking him up. So now he's got a record. He can't get student loans. He's always checking the box when he goes to get, whatever job he can get.
Right.
He can't rent a decent apartment in some places. This is the collateral damage that sticks with you and that impacts your future generations.
Yeah.
So, I'm talking to people from a health perspective. Stop letting these pharmaceutical companies come up in our church and push their drugs, on our elders, when we need to be opening their minds up to plant medicine and taking back control of their health in this real way. So this thing, like you said, it ain't about smoking and getting high. This is about freedom. This is about not being oppressed by this plant, right? And being, this plant is ours. Comes from the motherland.
Welcome to Wow Black, a seriously opinionated podcast bringing you the real and raw on anything happening while Black. If Black culture's there, we're there. If you're pissed or empowered, then let's talk about it. Ride with us on this all Black everything.
All right, welcome back, family.
Welcome back.
We are back in the building again with another amazing episode.
We get high. Oh, sorry. Too soon? Too soon.
But Eden gave him a glimpse of the whole episode. So today, we're going to be talking about kind of the next innovative wave of business, the new 2021 gold rush, kind of like prohibition, but so much better.
Bro, who are you? I get to hit you with your line, right? Who are you?
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Art.
What's happening, family? You got Vince with you again. Shanita, we skip that so many times.
We do. We act like our listeners already know us every time we get on the mic.
They should. They better. Shit, too.
But the new ones come in, though.
Yeah, you're right.
The new ones come in. So we gotta make them feel comfortable, too. And we're going to talk about a little bit of business of marijuana and the policies around legalization.
We're going to talk about what?
Yeah, weed.
Oh, man, I got to get prepared for this.
Yeah. How do you get prepared?
I can't tell y'all on the air. It ain't legal in all 50 states.
Look, every state ain't ready, but some states are ready. But we're going to talk a little bit about legalization, how to get started, get money in the business, and what it means. But before we hit you with our guest, I got a question for you, Vince.
What you got?
What do you think about starting a weed business?
Hey, man, my money is ready. I am right. I am looking for the right opportunity. I want to invest in the ground. I want to be at the cultivation aspect. I want to be the supplier to everything that's happening. Hey, I'm ready. You just let me know if you find the people, and I'm ready.
Look at that. I think we're going to be talking to the right person today. So our guest today, family, is Shanita Perry. And she's an entrepreneur, policy influencer with over 15 years of experience in solving some really complex issues involving business performance across multiple industries. In 2015, Shanita took a leap of faith and founded Budding Solutions to provide business strategy.
That's a dope name.
Yeah. Business strategy and policy development, consulting services to cannabis operators and policymakers nationwide. She has achieved exceptional results with positively impacting this huge cannabis industry and the greater community. She's a proud alumni in HBCU.
Come on, HBCU love.
Of North Carolina A&T.
Aggie pride.
We'll forget that one, but it's family.
We will.
It's
but
family.
It's all love. It's all love.
It ain't Southern University.
Or Langston University.
That's what it ain't.
It's true.
But it is love.
True.
It is love.
I love them all.
Right.
You see how she brought us back together?
Right.
She love them
Unified.
all. Yes. Towns University and the University of Baltimore, and lives to end the stigma associated with cannabis through her advocacy, businesses, and responsible consumption.
Shanita, he said a whole lot. What the hell does that mean? Tell these people what you do. Let
Well,
these
thank you
people
for
know, because
having
right
me.
now everybody heard cannabis, weed. They were like, where's it at?
Yes. And I have to correct you. It's Shanita Penny, because I want people to be able to find me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. So thank you for having me. Every day, I get up and I enjoy consuming cannabis. It helps me live my best life. And I work to make sure that if people want to also consume, that it is accessible to them. If people want to be involved in what you refer to as the gold rush or others refer to as the green rush, I want to help you get involved. But more than anything, I want our communities that were devastated by the war on drugs to benefit now and be reconciled through the tax revenue that's being generated. And so every single day, no matter what I'm doing, I'm living this thing. I'm building what I want to see in terms of an industry, and I cannot be, more fulfilled.
When you talk about, and we're going to get back to the real flow, but when you talk about tax revenue, right? You start using words like that. Maybe everyone doesn't get it, but you start talking about a lot of money. You start talking about a lot of greedy hands. You start talking about a lot of governmental procedure and policy. How does that fight look?
What we all know and are familiar with are the deficiencies in our community, the shortcomings when it comes to education and healthcare, access to healthy food. So we already know we're getting the short end of the stick when it comes to how tax revenue is spent in the community.
Right.
And so when we start there, we have a common purpose. Again, whether you consume the plant or not, you have to get involved with legalization so that you benefit from it. When you start talking about tax revenue, and I don't want to talk over your head. I want you to understand that the reason, your kids go to this school and they're only spending, X number of dollars here is because, property taxes that come from your community go into this general fund. And that's distributed. Not where it's needed, but just all willy-nilly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what we are saying is that you cannot legalize this plant and tax it and not, pour back into the communities that you fucked up.
Right. The ones who are actually paying with their lives and their time.
Right.
For you to now
lack of opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. We'll come back to that. I just wanted to ask that question. It was selfish. It was greedy. But I want to definitely come back and jump in and learn more about that. Art, brother, I'm going to let you get back to your flow, man. Hit with that wild black shit.
It was good timing, though, bro.
Yeah, no doubt.
It was real good timing.
No
I kind of
doubt.
like that. All right, wild black shit. Question number 1. Get you warmed up. For the culture, the cannabis consumption culture, we got a plethora of weed and smoking songs from hip-hop, R&B, rap. If you could name 3 classic weed, marijuana smoking songs, what would those 3 be?
My first is going to be Biggie Smalls. And I'm going with I Got a Story to Tell.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to that one.
Oh, yeah. That's you did go classic.
Mm-hmm.
What's your... So, it sounds like you can sing a little bit.
Oh, don't do that.
Is that correct? Is that true?
I can do
that
anything.
Says yes.
Uh-huh.
I can do anything. I don't sing.
And then she said, I can do anything.
I sing in the shower. I sing when I feel good. But my bread and butter is getting cannabis legalized. And
that was
redirect.
That was a great pivot. A great pivot. Great pivot. Good move.
All right, what's number 2?
I got 5 on it.
What you talking about?
Man,
yeah.
What you talking about?
Anthem.
Yes.
You know it was.
Okay. That's a nice 2. We got 2.
My third would be a song that I actually, and an artist I got hip to after I got into the industry, and that's Burner. And he has this song called 20 Joints. And it was like my theme song, getting me pumped up, when I was getting on that 6:00 flight to fly across the country to go wherever I had to go do before I was really making any money in this space. And it was just like, just really inspiring to hear him rap about his cannabis entrepreneurship.
I'm going to have to check him out. I have to type him out. I don't know this one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put that one in too. By who?
Burner.
Yep.
20, was it, you said 24?
20 joints. 20 joints.
20 joints. Okay. You didn't put us on. So you're saying that's classic. That's what you're saying right now.
I'm saying it became a classic for me.
Okay. Name 5 celebrities that you immediately think about when thinking about marijuana.
And you cannot say Bob Marley.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Snoop.
I should have said you can't say Snoop either,
yeah.
but like, she got
Okay.
No. Oh, look, she like, I got you, whatever you need.
So I'll go back to artists that may not have been associated, that most people didn't. I'm gonna go with Jay-Z and I'm gonna go with Nas.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. I'm gonna, you said I couldn't do Snoop. So other celebrities, Dave Chappelle.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whoopi Goldberg.
I didn't know Whoopi was out there like that.
Oh yeah. And Dionne Warwick.
Stop it.
Yeah.
not Auntie Dion.
Come on now.
What you saying over there?
Right. You didn't let it out the bag. Didn't nobody know that. Okay.
I ain't telling no secrets, but I'm putting people on, because people, you said don't go Bob Marley because that's what everybody thinks.
Yeah. Right.
And if that's not your aesthetic, if that's not your vibe or your culture, and I don't see how it's not, but I'm just saying if it's not, there are so many others that you can relate to. When I think of like my mom in retirement, enjoying her life, I'm like, Mom, Whoopi Goldberg uses the weed cream. I'm like, Mom, Dionne Warwick, she been smoking for a long time.
You know what? Now, I did remember Whoopi being associated with that cream because there was a company that came out. She's involved in the company, isn't she?
She was involved in that company. They're no longer, I don't know exactly what happened with the business, but I know that company's not making cannabis products anymore.
Okay.
But she did a lot for just making it.
Sound like somebody got high off their own supply and there ain't no more left. I got you.
Right. She got it in the vault.
Yeah.
Like, this just for me right now.
Right.
Got you. All right. Third signature question. What do you love most about life while Black?
You know what I love most? I love the universal experiences that we share, right?
Right.
Looking at somebody and just giving them that head nod or the eye or the side eye that, lets you know, we were raised by people just like that. We were in a family just like that. We've been exposed to similar things. I don't know that there are other people that have that familial relationship to a person. Just, what up, Black? It's just that. That's what I love the most.
I love that about us too.
Think of all the people that you met, especially like in the HBCU experience, right? You got all the Blackness.
All of it.
So in those 4 years, you just get so much and you are able to work together and you support each other because it's just that universal connectivity.
Yeah. I think it should be mandatory for everybody Black to go to HBCU.
Mandatory.
Cool. Well, you know what? We're going to jump into this dope quote. So I'm going to read you a quote and I want you to share with us what you think about it. It is time to tax and regulate marijuana like alcohol. It is time to end the arrest of so many people and the destruction of so many lives for possessing marijuana. And this is Senator Bernie Sanders. What you think?
I like Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. And I like where he's going with this. The only issue, and I don't really have a lot of issues with his approach to marijuana legalization, is that we should not regulate it like alcohol. It is certainly not as dangerous as alcohol, and it is much more beneficial than alcohol. We can't regulate it like alcohol if that means leaving it up to state-run stores like we have with the ABC stores in some states. Mm-hmm. No, we need to create opportunities for small local businesses. We need to continue to allow our larger businesses to grow. So that's my only issue with the quote, is regulating it like alcohol. If we regulate it like alcohol, you'll have Uncle Nearest, right? You know what happened with Jack Daniels and Uncle Nearest.
Absolutely.
You got all these years later, the family finally benefiting from what this, former enslaved man created. And and I mean, he had a global impact.
Yep.
But they had to fight for that recognition and for what was rightfully owed to them. And let's be clear, yeah, they launched the new brand, but that certainly just created a new revenue stream, and they, just commercialized that good deed they were doing.
I'm so happy that you went this direction with that around it not being like alcohol. It is not as dangerous as alcohol. It is like the list goes on why it is a very different type of situation.
Absolutely.
So in that, tell us about your work, like what you do, like day in and day out. What is it like? Boots on the ground. How are you mobilizing to make this a reality all across the U.S.?
Well, my consulting business, Budding Solutions, supports entrepreneurs and business owners, but we also support policymakers and regulators. So my current clients include municipalities. I'm working with the city of Detroit right now on a program called Homegrown Detroit. The purpose of Homegrown Detroit is to, first and foremost, create a lane for the local folks from Detroit. If you've lived in Detroit 30 years, you get to be prioritized. You get support from the city and you're first in line for these cannabis businesses in Detroit. And if you are low income, or if you have a marijuana conviction or had a parent that had a marijuana conviction, then you have even more priority.
Oh, wow.
So I'm working with the cities because that's where the magic really happens, right? The state legalizes it and says, here are the regulations. But to do business in a city, you have to be in good, have great relationships in the hood, in the community. Whether it's starting your business and needing the support from zoning officials, or it's, going before the church who's, been in the community for 100 years and they saying, nah, we don't want you selling that dope around here.
Right.
Meanwhile, they popping pills because their arthritis is acting up, or, they're taking something to sleep at night instead of, having some cannabis and sleeping good. So you have to work with the cities. And so for me, my clients range from getting it right from a policy and programmatic standpoint to working with the brother who has always been the weed man. And now he hears that cannabis is being legalized and wants to legitimize what he's been doing.
Yeah.
Those are the folks I want to work with. It's cool to work with these other people too, and I do. But I want my weed man, my former weed man,
right,
to have a piece of this pie, and also to lend his experience to the recipe that we are trying to get right. Because what we've done so far with legalization has benefited a few.
Yeah. Hearing that made me kind of want to ask about the brother who's been involved in the weed game, legal, definitely when it was illegal. Where does he or she fit in? Like, how? I know those are the people you want to work with. What can they do? How do they get involved? How do they flip their business from illegitimate to legitimate in the eyes of the government? What does that process look like?
Well, if you're in a state like California, it's much more promising, especially if you're in a city like Oakland, or if you're in Mendocino County, where that's what they call the Emerald Triangle. I mean, if you've had some good weed that was grown in the U.S., not that brick that comes from Mexico, but if you've had some good U.S. grown weed, it usually comes from the Emerald Triangle. Right. And so those farmers are, generations. You meet people that are 4th generation cannabis farmers up there.
Wow.
And so the county has said, first of all, the state said, we're going to have a social equity program. We are going to embrace and support the legacy operators. Let's not call them black market. That's not what they are. They are the legacy operators.
Yeah.
Let's bring them to the forefront so that we can, legitimize this thing in a real way that makes them come into the space and it doesn't keep them, right, selling in the alley.
Right.
Not paying taxes, creating potential public safety issues. So let's work together on the policy side of things to create frameworks that are not just desirable to big multi-million-dollar companies. So the guy who's in it already, he gets involved. If he's in a place like California, they're wrapping their arms around him and embracing him. If he's in Massachusetts, the state is just struggling to get folks to support social equity in a real way. So in the state of Massachusetts, they passed a law, created a program, and then you had an association of cannabis dispensaries sue the state because they have said for the first 3 years, delivery licenses will be available only to social equity and economic empowerment programs. So you carve out a lane for these people, and then the existing industry tries to stomp them out. That's problematic. And so them people in Massachusetts said, nah, we'll boycott, we will shut you down before you stop what will be our opportunity. So, it's tough, but it's doable. You got a couple of brothers in Massachusetts that have leveraged the social equity and economic empowerment programs to get their businesses going. If you're in Massachusetts, check out Pure Oasis. Brother owns that dispensary, and I think it's amazing that he's been able to not only build his business, but also support and lift up others in the gap while the state and cities figure it out.
What does it take to get started? I know every state generally has like a different, set of requirements or a different, licensing and all that. But if let's say I'm, Joey from Massachusetts, and I say, hey, I really want to get in this game. What would be the steps to get it started?
Massachusetts understands the importance of having community support. And having the communities able to hold these businesses accountable. And so, there you're going to look at what's happening in the city. Are there business licenses available? Because in a lot of municipalities, they will limit the number of cannabis businesses. I hope that we get to more of a free market system because a lot of times what happens when you limit the licenses, you already know you got to have money to play. You got to be politically connected. But that's what it starts with. It starts with understanding what the opportunity is in your wherever you are. And then you need to get into your government relations and your community relations. You need to then have a solid business plan that is beyond what most people think of when they think of a business plan. Because in this business plan, you need to demonstrate to the city and or state that you are going to have a secure facility, right? You don't have all this weed in here and you getting robbed every other week. People shooting up the block because you're there and all this. That doesn't happen. These facilities are, heavily monitored. There's, a strong security presence. But you'll hear people in the community throw that out there as a reason to not have these businesses. So you want to start working on that business plan, and then you need to raise money because it takes serious capital to get these businesses going.
Yeah,
you can get a small micro business going, for a reasonable amount of money in a place like California. But if you are on the East Coast in these limited licensed markets, you're talking about spending $500,000 just to apply for the license.
Oh my God, what?
That's at risk. That means there's no guarantee. So if you don't have, full confidence in the application that you're going to submit, you might not want to put up, the money to go hire consultants, write the application, pay the $50,000 application fee in places. We have come a long way in getting those license application fees, decreased. We've also gone, as far as having them become more of a refundable if you don't win the license, or so we're doing the work. But these are all the things that kept a lot of people out of this industry.
Yeah, I mean, literally, when you said that, right, it's not a whole bunch of Joeys around that just got a nice half a meal that's just sitting to wait to jump into the legalization of marijuana game. And so that's interesting. That sounds like it's in some instances not designed to allow certain individuals, certain pockets of people into that market. So the sounds like your work is booming right now. to
My
help
work
change
is
that.
booming.
Hey, Shanita.
Yep.
I want to ask a question about like the ecosystem of cannabis, right? And I know I'm changing directions completely. Apologize. But this is something I've been sitting with, right? If there are roughly 330 million people in this country, and cannabis use or marijuana use, admitted use is around 100 million. That's just the people that admitted it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's already a third of the population. And we know that if 100 million admitted it, the number of participants is significantly higher,
That's
right?
200 million.
Right.
Exactly.
So we'll stick with the stats and say 1/3 of all the adults, all the people in the country have smoked weed, have interacted with a cannabis product. And then when we go and we flip and we look at jail time, arrests, Black folks comprising someplace between 12.5% and 14% of the population are arrested at almost 4 times that of any other race, specifically white Americans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as we look at that kind of waterfall of data around usage, punishment, and then when you overlay what's happening now with the legalization, with the government taxation, with the company, private company, public company profits, because now they are putting cannabis in wine and food, and they're doing all these different things with it, including medicines and creams and rubs, right? It's everywhere at this point. What's happening and what's going on in your world to kind of right side that horribly misweighted calculation, right? That's almost 4 times likely to be arrested. And I'm not even talking about the sentencing,
Right.
and the jail time. And if we start playing with those numbers and looking at what that labor time and man hours truly looks like versus what's happening now, we hadn't even gotten there. Talk to me about that ecosystem and the work that you're doing in that place.
I love this question. So thank you for framing that so well, right? We're using at about the same, pace. We're being arrested and then sentenced disproportionately higher and more.
Yep.
And then we make up, and the number that they're throwing around today is, around 4% of ownership in the cannabis industry today.
Yeah.
So what we know is that in New York City, that 3.5% of businesses are owned by Black folks.
Mm.
So we are historically left out of, access to capital. We've been impacted with the criminal justice system.
Yep.
And so all of these play a factor and have created additional barriers to entry for getting into the industry. So over the last several years, I've been working at every level, municipal, state, and federal, to ensure that we try to level the playing field. So, years ago, if you had a cannabis possession charge or you went to jail, you had to navigate getting that expunged or your record sealed in some states where expungement doesn't exist, but you had to navigate that on your own.
Mm-hmm.
The work that we've done is to create model legislation that includes addressing expungement. Just as a day one, we are legalizing this. We are going to take the burden off the people that have already been victimized.
Right.
Okay. So we've done that work. We've created model policy. We have Congresswoman Barbara Lee out of California who introduced the Respect Resolution a number of years ago. I then took that piece of legislation, or that resolution rather, and created a model bill. I took people that were business owners, people that were policymakers, doctors, lawyers, every stakeholder possible. We put them in a room and we said, what does ideal legislation look like? I said, let's go pie in the sky. In this room today, it doesn't matter that the banking system is against us. It doesn't matter that, redlining exists.
Right.
It doesn't matter that we as Black women are the fastest growing group of business owners in this country, but are the least capitalized.
Yeah. Right.
So we created that model legislation. And once you give people, tools, they go to work.
Yeah.
And
No
so
doubt.
we are in the communities at every level. Like I said, municipal, we're at the state houses. We are on Capitol Hill fighting for equitable policy. So what we are looking at right now is the opportunity to see real federal policy for the first time. The MORE Act was introduced last year and passed the House. And now it goes to the Senate this year. And my work is to go back and make sure that, again, folks aren't left out. We don't want an additional federal license that's just going to create, again, another burden, another barrier.
Right. Yep.
And we know y'all don't play fair either.
Right.
So
100%.
Yeah. So we start with policy and we make sure that we are not only getting it right from a cannabis perspective, but then all the other things that it touches. We have a piece of banking legislation called the Safe Banking Act. Folks that are in this space are struggling, because of the fact that this is still federally illegal. And so it affects our banking. It affects our tax, situation. It affects our ability to access programs like the PPP program, even though we are essential businesses. So that's the work we're doing to try to level the playing field. And again, that's that MORE Act. It includes, expungement for the folks that have the federal cannabis charges.
Right.
It includes money to states so that they can set up expungement programs at the state level. It includes money for states and municipalities that want to support Black-owned businesses, that want to support businesses that are owned by the legacy operators. So that work it really begins with the policy. But then we've got to also, we got to work together. Nothing in this industry happens alone. And we're up against some big fish. So if Black folks don't come together, then guess what? We're going to keep on being tokenized. All right, we'll take one Black person over here so we look good, so we look diverse. But that's not meaningful. That does not impact our community.
All right, so first, I've got a ton of questions from what you just said, and I'm going to try to work through them. But the first thing that I think is important is, and hopefully people listening got that, but I'm going to ask you to give them a little bit more in case they didn't. This is bigger, much bigger than your right to smoke in your living room, right?
Absolutely.
This is way bigger than your ability to buy marijuana and enjoy it, right? If anything,
absolutely.
If anything, that's the trick, right? Because the reality is, this is big business. This is governmental policy. This has to do with the global dollar, right?
Yes.
This is the globalization of an industry.
Yeah.
While they lure us to sleep with the ability, you niggas go have your little joint, right?
Yep.
So if I wanted to add context to that for our listeners, if I wanted them to understand how much more is at risk, and the risk in this case is not of you losing more, but the risk is of you being excluded from what's coming next, right?
Locked out.
Mm-hmm.
How can you convey that to them so that people can understand it's bigger than your right to smoke? Go get educated, go get involved, go get a piece. Right? How can you contextualize that a little bit? I know it's a big question.
It is a big question, but I break it down for my audience. If I'm talking to Black business owners, if they're familiar with, leveraging supplier diversity programs and government contracts for minorities, then I'm talking to them on that level. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, hey, let's put together, a best-in-class team, go after one of these licenses, and you know what we've got? You know what our weapon is? Our secret weapon is that we also happen to be Black. But thinking that you're going to get it and be successful because you're Black, no, that's the trick.
Right.
That is the trick bag. You got folks in California that qualify for these social equity programs, right? And I'm up here boosting California up, talking about how they're embracing us. But what they did was create an environment that was ripe for predatory partnering, for damn near sharecropping. What is the cannabis industry?
Yeah.
So I have to talk to people on their level. If I'm talking to somebody who, daddy was locked up, they've struggled because of that. Mom was struggling, so they didn't have the best education opportunities, or even, haven't done a lot in terms of building real wealth, right? How do you start a business with no money? Right? You become a target because you have this license now, this thing that somebody with money sees value in, but they know as soon as they, dangle a $100,000 check in your face, you're going to take it, buy a Cadillac, buy some weed, and your money's gone. Your capital's gone.
Yep.
Meanwhile, in LA, you had folks that were, blowing through their life savings, sitting on property just because you cannot help the delays that come with starting a new industry.
Yeah.
And then getting hit by a pandemic. So you have folks that, basically took a little check, and when their money was gone, the company had fulfilled their promise and they let you just, fall by the wayside. You have people that were actually worse off trying to go after this dream than they were coming into it. So if I'm talking to folks that are working in schools with youth, one of the things I really try to talk to folks about is, being open-minded. I had a good friend who was a teacher, and she used to complain about this kid always coming to school smelling like weed. And I said, that might not even be him. That might be his household. But he's still getting up and coming to school every day. Like, we got to start thinking about this differently. And we got to think about the collateral damage that folks often forget about. When you talk about a kid at 17 getting caught with a joint.
You heard her clapping her hands. I heard that. Go ahead.
Matter of fact, I visualized it. I love it. Yeah. Keep going. Yes.
So you think about a 17-year-old Black boy, right? He gets caught with a small amount of weed, and instead of, having the conversation with him and giving him a slap on the wrist and sending him on about his way, you locking him up. So now he's got a record. He can't get student loans. Yeah. He's always checking the box when he goes to get, whatever job he can get.
Right.
He can't rent a decent apartment in some places. This is the collateral damage that sticks with you and that impacts your future generations.
Yeah,
so, I'm talking to people from a health perspective. Stop letting these pharmaceutical companies come up in our church and push their drugs, on our elders, when we need to be opening their minds up to plant medicine and taking back control of their health in this real way. So this thing, like you said, it ain't about smoking and getting high. This is about freedom.
Yes, indeed. I like
this. This is about not being oppressed by this plant, right? And this plant is ours. Comes from the motherland.
I really I'm not going to be able to keep up with all my questions, right? You mentioned look at things differently. And then I don't even remember what the term you just used. It was plant something. It'll come back to me. But plant medicine. Plant medicine. Thank you, Wahid. Wahid got in my ear like she said plant medicine, brother. She said plant medicine.
Teamwork, man.
Right. But looking at things differently, plant medicine, right? Things that people may not be thinking about. I would love your input on how more holistically the Black community could look at the cannabis industry differently. Because right now, everyone gravitates toward what they know, which is how to sell. So they immediately redirect toward, if I'm going to go legal, I want to go the dispensary route.
Right.
But there's a ton of other stuff, right?
Exactly.
Talk to people about the industry as opposed to the retail exchange. Like, what else is there?
Right. So you said it earlier. You want to be at the top of the supply chain. You want to be the cultivator, the supplier. So that's what we have to embrace, is getting in where you fit in, because this industry needs everybody.
Right.
Okay. So if your thing is cultivation and you want to, now think about it. If you're going to compete, now we're not talking about your basement grow. We're not talking about that little closet that you had back in the day. These are state-of-the-art facilities.
Yeah.
You are making plant medicine. So these have to be, manufacturing, food manufacturing, pharmaceutical grade type facilities, right?
This ain't the flower pot in your back room.
Exactly. Now, there is certainly a place for that because I believe everyone should have the ability to grow their own medicine. I like growing tomatoes and watermelons. I want to grow weed too wherever I live. And I
heard
want
you
it to be
smile when you
legal.
said that. I feel you.
And so we have to think about all of the opportunities. Remember, folks did not get rich finding gold. The folks that were selling picks and shovels got rich. And so that's what you have to think about. If you're an HVAC, if you own a business that does that kind of work, HVAC or any other kind of general contracting, when you hear that cannabis is coming to your community, or if you have the ability to expand your business to support it somewhere else, that's where you get in where you fit in.
Yeah.
And when you bring that expertise and that value, now you're able to leverage, your demonstrated track record in the business community, right?
Right.
And you look good compared to that cannabis company that's coming from out of state that don't know nobody, ain't never done nothing for the community, never hired. So yes, you need to start thinking about how you can support, financial services, real estate. That's a big one. And we have real estate,
yes, indeed.
Stop losing your grandmama's house and
say that again.
And
Please tell them again.
The land, there's never going to be any more land. So being able to be a property owner in this industry is amazing because guess what? In a lot of places, you have to secure your property to even apply. So we're sitting on a lease, or in some places where they recognize that this should not be, a get rich quick for the landlords. They've said, all right, a letter of intent will do. But in a lot of places, you got people that own property for 2-3 years until they're able to actually generate revenue.
Right.
So real estate is important. If you are a medical professional and you have a passion for this plant, become an educator. Everybody needs to know how cannabis can help them from a wellness and preventative angle, as well as helping people understand how they can integrate and sometimes replace and cut back other pharmaceuticals with, properly guided medical cannabis. I'm not telling you to stop taking your diabetes medicine because your nephew has that fire. Please don't do that. Don't do it. But I will encourage you to talk to a cannabis expert, a medical professional who's taken on the initiative to learn about this plant and really supports their patients using it. Because you have to talk about this in a real way. If you're going to the dentist, if you're going in to have any kind of surgery and you smoke 2 blunts because your nerves were bad, guess what? Your ass is going to wake up mid-surgery. But people don't know that. They trying to stay in the closet. Don't want nobody to know they smoke weed.
Right.
Mess around and lose your life.
Yeah. Education is key. Speaking of education, again, you said so many things that I want to get back to. So I want to go back to the policy aspect. You talked about the Respect Resolution, the MORE Act, the Safe Banking Act. Take just a second and talk about each of those, or even holistically, right, the direction that they go. And then the more important piece to that question is, how can the everyday person both get more educated and then get more involved in the legality portion, the policy portion, the legalization portion?
Oh, yeah. So the Respect Resolution, we've done what we're going to do with that because, like I said, we used it. It wasn't an actual piece of legislation. So it was just saying, hey, if you're at a state level or even, hey, federal government, when we work on this, these are the things we need to keep in mind and work to achieve. So we've done what we're going to do with that. And we have an amazing partner in Representative Barbara Lee. I mean, just in all things Black. Okay.
Come on, Barbara. Come on.
Right. So I just love her and the work she's done. But the MORE Act is important because, again, what we're going to get with the MORE Act is descheduling of cannabis. So it doesn't mean that in Mississippi, where they haven't legalized it yet, that it's going to be legal. No, it just means that there's no federal prohibition anymore. Okay, what we also get with the MORE Act, again, is that expungement of the federal cannabis crimes. What we also get is a 5% tax that is going to fund work entry, substance abuse programs, workforce development. I said work entry, workforce development, capital for businesses, and other community initiatives that are, this is just, again, tax revenue going to the communities that were most impacted.
Right.
So the MORE Act is important. When it gets to the Senate, what we have to make sure of is that we remove the language around the federal licensing, and that we ensure that it is as equitable as we have been working to make it.
Right.
Safe banking is my favorite piece of legislation because I know it's going to pass.
Talk about that money.
Everybody needs it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's long overdue. The one wonderful thing that we get from the Safe Banking Act is visibility on who's getting the money that will then become available, right? So now capital flows into the cannabis industry. Now, we didn't go and get this safe banking just for white folks to be able to get their businesses going. We want a report day one that shows the number of Black cannabis businesses. We want to see in 6 months how many of those businesses have had increased access to banking and capital. So we want that government accountability and oversight from the Safe Banking Act. And then...
Is there enforcement that comes out of that?
Man, the banks still having, they still get away with treating us the way they do. This shit is institutional.
They do.
Right. So we are fighting for that. And that is what, our champions are, that's where they will be helpful. So Joe Biden this week having an entire day focused on racial equity, we're going to point to that when we're talking about any kind of cannabis legislation. He has set the standard, now saying from the federal government, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. So I can appreciate being here with him in office doing this work, because we certainly weren't getting that from Republicans over the last several years.
Right.
You know what? So I was I like the money piece too. I kind of just love that, the whole thought process of it being a stream of revenue that we can generate for us. When you think about, there's a delineation between state and federal regulations, right? As it relates to legalization in the ability to actually have dispensaries and have a fully, a business around cannabis. What can you maybe lay some clarity around the difference between federal and state?
Okay. So it is illegal. Cannabis is illegal. It is a Schedule I substance. And that's a contradiction because the federal government also has a patent for the medicinal value of cannabis, a few of them, as a matter of fact. So we know this is just the government being the government, right? So it's federally illegal.
Right.
That's it. So now the state, Colorado, Washington State, Oregon, California, Nevada, New Jersey, Alaska, Massachusetts, these places have said, and a few more, it's 15 total states in the District of Columbia that have legalized cannabis. And what they said was, we're changing our state constitution to now legalize this for either medicinal or for adult use. And they operate within the state. The federal government has basically put provisions in place, various amendments that say we won't spend Department of money sending to the Department of Justice, after state compliant legal businesses.
Really?
The DEA cannot come after. Yes. And it protects medical businesses. So these adult use businesses are taking a huge chance. And what's interesting here is that you have to remember, the larger the company, the less risk it really is for them, because they have all the people in place to make sure that they are state level compliant and that the federal government stays off their back.
Mm-hmm.
What becomes a problem is when people hear something and think that, I think it's legal here, or they halfway know the law and they're going to make no, you can't do that. You have to understand your state law,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to understand your, if applicable, your local laws, and be licensed and have as many licenses as they, require to operate these businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So the state licenses typically are merit-based, competitive application processes. In a state like Oklahoma, they decided to try something new. Let's just see what happens when we let people start businesses and have what looks like a free market.
Yeah.
And so Oklahoma was on fire. I mean, there were thousands of cannabis businesses, and they slowly started phasing in new requirements. And so they are starting to, folks are starting to fall off. Folks can't, keep up. But I think it's a smart approach to, figuring out how we do this well. We just saw the state of Arizona go from medical to adult use in 3 months. That's the fastest that we've seen it happen. Right. And it's because those existing medical operators got to be adult use operators 3 months later.
Yeah.
But that's not a good thing. First, the brother out in Arizona is like, oh, I want to get involved.
Right.
Because now he's coming to the game late. Now he's got to go find the supply if he's not going to be his own supply.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But now you're going from $500,000 or $1 million to start up a dispensary to now needing, 4, 5, 6 times that to have a grow operation and then be able to retail it. But we do have to be in more positions of ownership. And we have to understand that there are so many avenues to getting into this space that may not even require you to get licensed by the state. So, playing that real estate role, providing professional services and investing in these companies, they don't necessarily require you to be licensed. Now, if you want to get into transport in some places, which I think is a very low capital to get started. We already own trucking companies. We already do a lot of that. So I say get in where you fit in.
That's a hell of an idea.
So I heard this thing about you cannot use the banking system when you deal in a marijuana-based business, right? Or cannabis-based business. How does the money work?
Is that real?
Man, I went to swipe my card today and my card declined. And I was like, no, swipe it again. And she was like, it declined. And she had an attitude. So I give her my other card, get out of there, and I get home and I call Capital One because I'm calling y'all out. I call Capital One.
What's in your wallet? Is that Capital One?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but still.
Nothing, damn it. You decline my shit. Ain't nothing about.
They closed my account.
What?
They closed my credit card account. Yes.
What was the justification?
That's how hard it is. Man, sometimes they don't even give you, they'll tell you that you violated their agreement. You violated the terms of the agreement because you are a cannabis business. It's federally illegal. They have some of these banks have, man, this is personal because this happened today. Okay.
Look, and you still here with us. You know how much we appreciate you.
We do. I'm glad you're at the card.
Yes, me too. Well, and I'm actually very used to it. I mean, it's the same thing when you're running a business online or you have a retail operation. These things happen very regularly. So one of the things I tell my client, and we work on our, contingency situations for banking, for merchant processing, for all of that. Because it's federally illegal, what banks have to do is essentially audit every transaction. So what you typically pay, $30 a month for a bank account, just regular checking, a cannabis business will pay $4,000. And they don't even have a month. They don't even have full access to, credit lines and checks and things like that, right? Because they touch the Federal Reserve, because they touch, things are FDIC insured, things are credit card companies, like I said earlier, don't mess with the cannabis industry. So we have to have some federal banking reform. We have to have federal tax reform, because while you're talking about banking, because here's the thing, these banks will take your $4,000 a month and let you basically launder your money.
I bet not see nobody from Capital One smoking shit.
Nothing. Banking is a challenge. And if you think that's a doozy, taxes are another one.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. How do you pay federal taxes?
So they take their taxes. You can bring that money to them anytime. They'll come pick it up. They will meet you at the bank. I mean, that's how it's crazy. They take our money but won't really support us in a real way. And I was going to say that the taxes is a very real thing. And that's why this is not attractive to a lot of legacy operators, because to get into this space and not be able to write off ordinary business expenses because you're a cannabis company, that's crazy.
Write off
no, not in a lot of not for a lot of these businesses.
And it doesn't make any sense at the same damn time.
Right. Yep. Imagine when the wildfires were tearing through California and Washington and Oregon this summer. Imagine having paid $500,000 in local, state, and federal taxes over the last 3 years you've been in business to have your dispensary wiped out by a fire. Insurance company won't help you because they can basically just sell you a dream. You can pay premiums and then can't even file a claim. It's crazy out here for us, but we've been deemed essential. They're looking at cannabis as a therapy for the COVID,
Yeah.
But won't even treat us like the good businesses that we are.
It's the craziest shit I've heard.
It's the craziest shit ever. Mm-hmm. And I'm on their asses this year.
So
because everybody...
So the federal government says, no, it's illegal. The states might let you do it. We ain't fucking with you. No, we ain't giving you this money. No, we're going to come after you.
But you better pay us quarterly.
But you better give us some taxes.
But on them illegal dollars, we want these taxation law. We want this money. That's right.
And you haven't written anything off. So you effectively taxed anywhere from 70 to sometimes 100%.
And you ain't getting a write-off. You ain't getting support.
Can't get no relief. They turning down vets for home loans, for mortgages. They turning down vets for insurance because they want to get into the cannabis industry, because they work for legal cannabis businesses.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this is squarely where you live, right? How do we effect change? How do we create a different system?
I'm on their asses this year. All you've heard municipalities and states and the federal government talk about is tax dollars. Well, great. Let me tell you what we need in return. We need you to pour into these communities. Illinois just dropped, I think it was like $250 million into like a crazy number of organizations that are working in our community to make sure kids aren't hungry, to make sure kids are, have good after school programs, to make sure they have job training and educational opportunities, to make sure healthcare is in the community. NAACP got some money for whatever they doing. I mean, Illinois broke the people off. And that's because they legislated for it. The consumers showed up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny that we're talking about $1 billion in sales in Illinois. We're talking about $1 billion in tax revenue in California. So think of the scale and the size of what California's market could do for the communities. LA, Oakland, all the places in between that we've been, again, oppressed and just beat down and neglected. Nah, y'all got to come correct.
All right, so I've got to ask a question.
My money.
Please
run that check. Matter of fact, it need to be cash.
I'm really struggling with, and I said it once, federally still illegal, legalized state. So you're not getting any federal assistance. You're not getting write-offs. You're not getting any of that. They're taking their taxes, and people are still locked up.
Absolutely.
So they're still getting free labor. I mean, it's like,
yep.
I'm really struggling with this. So, okay, let me ask this question. All right, in what rooms, in what ways are these decisions being made? Who are the people making these decisions? Like, where is this happening at?
Well, I can tell you, in several years ago in places like Florida, it was happening the conversations were happening in back rooms between a handful of people. In Florida, one of the requirements they made for getting into the medical cannabis industry was that you had to be in the commercial nursery business for 30 years.
What?
So there were 6 guys that got together like, yo, we got 30 years of nursery experience.
Lock this market.
So
What?
Oh yeah. And that's where it starts. So now we've definitely made progress. Mm-hmm. We've definitely made progress to now opening up that process and making it much more transparent. New York has not legalized yet because they have not found a way to, first and foremost, commit to investing in the communities. And then secondly, they're trying to figure out how they do licensing in a real, meaningful, impactful way to, first and foremost, embrace the legacy market there, because that's a real thing. And to ensure that, the existing medical operators have an opportunity to continue to thrive, but that they're not locking everybody else out. So they've been at a standstill on this for 2 years. Now, Andrew Cuomo needs what? Tax revenue. So he's like, We're going to get this done this year. We're going to get it done. And he's got pressure because New Jersey legalized. And he's got pressure because Pennsylvania and Connecticut, all these places where his tax dollars could easily go over the border.
Mm-hmm.
These places are, for the first time, actually working collaboratively. So you don't have states working in silos, not caring about what's happening next to them or above or below them. You got the Northeast working in collaboration to get this right. So we need to be in our, city and state elected officials' ears saying what we want in terms of cannabis programming, how we're spending cannabis tax revenue. We need to make sure that we begin to hold these companies accountable that have committed to our communities, that have committed to, paying livable wages and haven't done it. We need to be in the rooms calling out these companies and stop just accepting crumbs. It ain't enough to see one Black cannabis company.
Right.
And it sure ain't enough to see one Black dispensary selling all the white boys' product.
America is so good at being on some bullshit, some real fuckery.
And nobody knows.
Right. And they just keep that shit real quiet.
Yeah.
Because we out here distracted by the shiny shit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep.
Shanita, we can have this conversation all day. I have no doubt that our listeners have gained a lot of information. I'm sure many of them are sitting with their mouths wide open, much as I have been throughout this episode, especially with this sinister-ass bullshit we just went through at the end, because sinister is the only word for that. But we are bumping up against time. I want to be respectful of your time, our listeners' time. And I want to do one thing that we always do. At the end of every episode, we hand the mic over to our guest, and we give you the time to tell everyone listening anything that's on your heart and mind to share with them, the points you want them to know. We just ask that you include how they can catch up with you, how they can follow you, how they can support you. And with that, we'll turn the mic over to you, ma'am.
Well, thank you. I just really want all Black people to find a positive relationship with this plant in whatever way it manifests. This plant has oppressed our people for so long, and we finally have a chance to not only reconcile what's been done, but to thrive in the future if we work together. And so I want folks to understand how a thriving cannabis industry might support education or whatever lane you're in. I want you, to find me. And if I can't help you, my network can certainly help you. My website is buddingsolutions.net. You can find me on Instagram at buddingsolutions or Shanita Penny _. I'm always happy to connect, always happy to build. I just really ask that we try to do better as a people, because if we aren't aligned, if we aren't united, we will be taken advantage of as it relates to this opportunity. And we can't have that. This really affords us the opportunity to show how we should be living equitably, how we should be legislating equitably. This is so much bigger than cannabis. But this plant, it really does allow us to kick down doors and have conversations about, racial disproportionate application of the criminal justice and everything else, all of the other racial injustices. So I want us to unite around this plant for whatever that means for you. And I really appreciate being here, being home to talk about this.
Home, we appreciate you. Real talk. Real talk.
You can come home anytime.
Right. Brother Art, you got anything?
Got to get my research game up because I need to get in the fight because it is real.
I got you.
This was something. Listen, Wild Black, all I got to tell you, smoking with your boy has a different meaning to me after this conversation. I hope you all paid attention. I hope you get some education. I hope you get some involvement, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're seeing happen is the establishment of a new industry, and there are availabilities for you. There are places for you to fit in. Like Shanita said, get in where you fit in. Go figure that out. Fight your way in. Get educated. And then help somebody else out, right? Don't let this ship take off without us because they all have before now. Let's be involved here. With that, Wild Black, we love you. Peace. We out.
We out.